The other thing they said to me, which has always stayed with me, is Rio Ferdinand said to me, how many times do you think he came into the training ground dressing room in 26 years? Like, I don't know. They said twice.
Really?
Didn't need to come in there. The culture was in there.
Yeah.
And it was self-policing when it's strong, right?
Yeah. But you're right. Sports teams, the ones that do it really well. I was being told an Arsenal story that I probably can't share, but you could see bits and pieces of Mikel's, how he's pushing that team culture at the moment too, which seems very fascinating. With some of the almost antics he seems to be doing this all or nothing season that was, I think, last season as well. So you can see that, and I love studying that with sports teams because it's 11 players on the pitch. How do you make these people gel together and form a team? Hugely important thing. So I agree, but also, like, imagine if you had 11 new players. Can you even form, or Chelsea these days too, right? Can you even create a culture that way? Or is it something that should be done intentional? If you're growing a company, growing the number of employees by 50%, 2 years in a row, most of your employees probably won't have been here even for a year. It will change things. Whereas if you make something where it's more of a gradual change, it's easier. I'm not saying it's trivial, but to kind of have the same culture. And I think many founders make that mistake when they overhire. They don't understand the implication of the culture. They just look at sort of more warm bodies, but it's all these other subtle things that starts breaking.
Daniel, we've got a closing tradition on this podcast where the last guest leaves a question for the next guest. And I love this question because you don't like giving advice. So this is a perfect one for you. What is the advice that someone could have but didn't give you at 21 years old that would have made you more successful at the thing you now do?
I think we spoke about it. I've gone through iterations of trying to learn from other people and model that. A huge part of that has been kind of optimizing for my strengths and not covering my weaknesses. And I wish that I realized much earlier on that perhaps my superpower is that I'm pretty good all-arounder and not particularly good at anything. So I used to think, for instance, that I had this brilliant, I modeled myself on the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world of like, I need to run every product meeting. I need to be the best product person in the world. It just wasn't me. And it took me a while to realize that and be comfortable saying that, right? But I have realized that I do like a lot of different things. I love learning about new things. And perhaps that is my superpower, to realize that the person who's doing PR, that's quite an interesting thing to learn about. There are interesting things about employment law, how that came to be, and trying to understand that. And the list goes on and on and on. And I love that. And I wish I would have probably understood that earlier about myself, because that would have allowed myself to not model so much on other people, but somehow be more introspective and listen to myself.
And I think that's really one of the things I take away from you, said very eloquently, is that you're proof that entrepreneurs can buck a number of different trends, and still be wildly successful. And that evidence means to someone like me that there's no such thing as a entrepreneur in terms of how they operate, what they're interested in.